Part 64. The Wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 632. After thinking about it carefully, I found that what my subordinates said actually made sense. Does she really mean this? Commander Chen looked at Len Ning's leaving figure and muttered to the people next to him. It sounds reasonable, but why does he always feel weird? That's what it means, the attendant hurriedly said. Hall Master Len had no grievances with their commander. If it wasn't for this reason, why did he have that attitude just now? Besides, even if she doesn't have this intention, she will definitely be willing to negotiate with him when their commander seizes power from Commander Han and becomes the top figure in the southern military base. In this case, does it make any difference whether she means it or not? Also, the key is that their commander himself is very willing to seize power. Don't they, the subordinates, just have to follow their master's wishes? Only in this way can he gain more attention from the commander, right? If the military commander can really seize power successfully, he can still be a hero or something. Commander Chen nodded. Okay. Let's take care of the Korean building first. Then a cold light appeared in his eyes. These things were all caused by Guo Qiudong. He wouldn't have taken out the helicopter unless he had to save his illegitimate daughter. It's not that he didn't take care of that gratitude, his son wouldn't be trapped in the Thunder base now. A person like him is not worthy of being the commander of a southern military base. Yes, he can replace it. Thinking of this, Commander Chen already had an idea in his mind. Len Ning took Lan Shi and everyone to the sales point. Little did she expect that Commander Chen and others would quickly speed up their actions because they misunderstood her meaning. I haven't been here for a few days, but there are so many people here. Blue Snake looked around and sighed. This development speed far exceeded his expectations. In the past, before the end of the world, everyone said that the development speed of their Lay's family was astonishing. The development speed of my sister-in-law's business was dozens of times faster than that of Lay's before the end of the world. I'm really envious. If the fifth branch continues to develop like this, one branch will be able to surpass the sum of their other branches combined. Most of them are newly recruited employees. The business volume is huge and they dare not slack off. The warehouse manager responsible for receiving the goods quickly explained with a smile. Len Ning looked at Blue Snake with a smile. If you are interested, you can send someone to join us. Just pay a small amount for the admission fee. The fifth hall has limited manpower and cannot allocate too many people to come and do it themselves. It would also be good to let other branches participate. At worst, she will earn less and be more relaxed. After all, their own people are more reliable and easier to use than the people at Yangdao base. Leaving the core position to her own people would make her feel more at ease. The Blue Snake's eyes flashed. Okay. We've had this intention for a long time, but we were afraid you wouldn't agree, he said quickly. Len Ning curled her lips and said, what's wrong with not agreeing? Let's make money together. Does she seem to be such a selfish person? Haha, okay. Thank you, sister-in-law. Lan Snake smiled and saluted Len Ning with a cupped fist. Then Len Ning walked away with a smile. The person in charge of warehouse management began to make handovers with the people who shipped the goods. Blue Snake was naturally reluctant to leave and stood aside to watch the handover. Good guy, the amount of goods is more than 5 times more than the last time he came here. City B's spending power is okay. In fact, without looking at this, he probably knows something about the situation. Because he also added some goods to the fifth branch for export, the number of orders placed by the fifth branch was very impressive. Just 2 days ago, they placed a large order, 10 times the quantity of the previous order. In addition, they also suggested that his factory operate at full capacity and said that new orders would be placed soon. Now his factory is working overtime every day. Seeing this, Blue Snake decided that he had to better understand the needs of the survivors in City B. See if he needs to develop more good products to sell to them. Also, it's time for him to open more new factories. After Len Ning walked away, he went to his office to rest. Yes, she has an office here too. When I come here, I will occasionally read reports in the office, or simply rest there for a while. Len Ning was in a good mood when he saw that each of the reports on the table was more beautiful than the last. Suddenly remembering that Commander Chen from the Southern Army base came to see him, Len Ning frowned slightly. It's time, now that the people from the Southern Army base have been found, it's time to bring better things to the major bases in City B. Thinking of this, Len Ning picked up the phone on the table and dialed the general manager of the point of sale. Len Ning directly asked the general manager to come over and hung up the phone. She didn't wait for a while before the general manager arrived. "I've met the hall master." The general manager stood up straight and saluted Len Ning respectfully. "Yeah," Len Ning responded. "How much of the arms that were handed over to you before were purchased by Yangdao base?" Len Ning then asked directly. "Currently, the sales points are mainly selling food and daily necessities, and arms are not for sale to the outside world. In order to ensure the safety of Yangdao base, she specially purchased a large number of arms from the military department to sell to Yangdao base. It was also considered that the Yangdao base could not afford so much money for the time being, so the Yangdao base was allowed to use the weapon on credit." When she handed this batch of arms to the general manager, she told him not to sell all the arms to Yangdao base, but to keep at least half of them. Only in critical situations, such as an attack from the Southern Army base or an outbreak of zombies, can the other half be taken out. "Everything that can be bought has been bought by Mr. Yang," the general manager said with a worried look. "I followed your instructions and kept half of it. But Mr. Yang seemed to know that I still had arms in my hand, and wanted to inquire more than once. You're trying to trick me into buying more arms." A smile appeared on Len Ning's lips. "Who wouldn't want it if we could get it on credit? From now on, you don't have to hide the arms in your hands. If Mr. Yang wants to buy it, just sell it to him." Len Ning thought for a while and said. The general manager immediately looked at Len Ning in confusion. "But if you buy again, you have to pay in cash," Len Ning continued. "Of course, if we encounter a critical situation, we will still give him credit." Arms were relatively expensive, and she had spent a lot of money on this batch of goods. It was really uneconomical to buy them all on credit. The general manager smiled instantly and said, "Yes." Then he cupped his fists at Len Ning. "Also, please tell Mr. Yang that we will add arms products to the sales points starting next week. Because the quantity is limited, it will be sold on a first-come, first-served basis. If he is interested, it is best to place an order as soon as possible," Len Ning said. That batch of arms was prepared for Yangdao base, and she had never considered selling it to others. It's just that Mr. Yang has already tasted the benefits of credit before, and now it won't be that easy for her to get him to spend money to buy the remaining arms. At the critical moment, you have to stimulate him. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 633. "It's the hall master," the general manager said with some excitement. "As expected of the hall master, you are wise. The sale of arms is a big deal. We need to communicate and discuss it with the military. After you go down, clean up the things at hand. After the helicopter comes tomorrow, you will go back to Thunder Base. When the time comes, go with the people from the headquarters to talk to the military headquarters." Yes, a flash of excitement flashed in the general manager's eyes. It is a rare privilege to go to the military headquarters to negotiate with people from the headquarters. He was recruited to take charge of the project before, so he came to the right place. Yes. Work hard. The market in City B is huge and deserves greater investment, General Manager Len Ning Chong encouraged. "Don't worry, Master, I will definitely live up to your expectations," the General Manager was deeply moved and said immediately. I was even more determined to take root in City B and help the headquarters win the business territory of City B. Len Ning nodded with satisfaction before letting the general manager retreat. Then she leaned on her office chair and squinted for a while thinking about something. When he felt that the time was almost up, he got up and went to find Blue Snake and others. At this time, the handover of goods has been completed, and those who want to return to Thunder Base are already waiting. Len Ning and Blue Snake took off with relevant people and others back to the Thunder Base. Back at the Thunder Base, Blue Snake quickly found the hall owners and told them that Len Ning agreed to send people from each hall to the sales points. Of course, all the halls were very happy and immediately agreed to send people to the fifth branch. With Len Ning's consent, the fifth branch specifically negotiated the conditions for them to enter the sales points with the major branches. In this way, the core layer of the Yangdao base sales point is fully staffed. Branch number 5 no longer acts as a middleman between the major halls and the bases in City B. It makes less profit from the price difference, but more from the monthly settlement fees and helicopter transportation fees paid by the major branches. Moreover, the fifth branch no longer needs to pay huge sums of money to place orders in advance with major branches, which greatly reduces the cost of capital occupation. This money can be saved by the fifth branch and invested elsewhere. At the same time, the major branches no longer need to sell goods to the fifth branch, but directly connect with buyers in City B by cutting out the middlemen. They will make more profits. Such a result can be regarded as a win-win situation. At the same time, the people from the fifth branch went to the military headquarters and discussed the sale of arms to City B. After hearing about the fifth branch and the various halls, the military department also expressed interest in paying the settlement fee like the major halls and settling in the sales point of the fifth branch. Of course, Len Ning chose to refuse. Arms trading is different from the small commodities sold in major branches. The profits are horribly high. In addition, there is a southern military base in City B, so she has to control the export of arms at all times. She was worried about arranging these things to be done by a group of people in the military department who usually had little to do. The military was naturally unwilling to give up the opportunity to obtain more profits, and the negotiations with the fifth branch reached a deadlock. Len Ning had no choice but to call Lei himself. As a result, within 10 minutes, the person in charge of negotiations at the military headquarters raised the white flag. On the phone, he received a lot of criticism from his superiors and almost lost his job. At this point, the person in charge of the negotiations no longer dared to argue with the fifth branch. As long as Len Ning said it, he would agree to everything. Hey, it's so difficult for him. Apart from taxes, the only significant income for their military department is the arms business. The income from selling arms is indeed considerable, but it cannot cover the speed at which they burn money by investing in the safe zone. The boss only wants them to find ways to make money. Now they finally come across an opportunity to make more money, but no one supports him. No matter what, the lady opposite is Mr. Lei, and she is also the head of the fifth branch. If you negotiate terms with her, isn't it like lighting a lamp in the toilet and looking for death? I will make arrangements for the payment side, and you can keep up with the production. Looking at the gray and frustrated face of the person in charge of the negotiation, Len Ning couldn't bear to continue to push him further. The military department has always been the core of Thunder Base, and she will not take advantage of them. Okay. Thank you, Hall Master Leng. The face of the negotiator finally looked better. Hall Master Leng didn't ask them for a due date, so Hall Master Leng was giving them face. So far so good. Yeah, Len Ning responded and looked at the general manager of the Yangdao base sales point. The general manager hurriedly stood up and handed a specific purchase order and an expected purchase plan for the next 3 months to the person in charge of the negotiation with a smile. This is our purchase order for today and the purchase schedule for the next 3 months. Please check it. The general manager smiled and said to the people opposite. The person in charge of the negotiation took the document. When they saw the numbers above, Everyone was shocked on the spot. The demand is so great. It's almost 1/3 of their current external sales of weapons. How much money do you have to make for such a big order? At this moment, the person in charge of the negotiation had no resentment at all. With these orders in place, are you still worried that you won't be able to communicate with the finance department? Also, as Hall Master Leng said just now, he will pay them in cash. This means that they can freely produce without worrying about raw material costs and other issues. When the machine runs, it becomes money. This is a huge source of wealth. There was excitement in the eyes of the person in charge of the negotiation, and then he immediately handed the information in his hand to the production director next to him. There was still a somewhat smug look on his face. The director of the production department was a little puzzled at first, but when he saw the contents of the document, his eyes almost lit up. Such a big order. Okay. The factory that was previously scheduled for rest may be able to be used again. And those workers who are on vacation can all be called back to continue working. There are also raw materials, he has to find a way to get more. The head of the production department has been thinking about how to increase production. Len Ning was very satisfied with the reactions of the two people opposite him. We will provide the order schedule for the next quarter 1 month in advance to give you time to prepare in advance, Len Ning said. City B is a big market, and the volume of subsequent orders will only increase. If you need to add factory buildings and equipment, please make arrangements in advance. Yes, yes. Don't worry, Hall Master Leng, the person in charge of the negotiation quickly responded with a smile. It is necessary to build factories and equipment. As long as the orders continue to flow, they can build more buildings and equipment. Len Ning nodded, and then asked his men to discuss more details with the military department. After everything was finalized, the contract was issued on site. Subsequently, both parties signed and the cooperation was officially concluded. Then, after a week of gathering momentum, arms products were officially put on sale at the sales points of the Yangdao base. On this day, there was a long queue outside the sales point, and there was an endless stream of people coming to see the arms samples and place orders. When Meng Mao saw this situation, he hurried back to inform their city lord. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Ki Now. Chapter 634. City Lord's Mansion. How's it going? What's going on at the point of sale? As soon as Meng Mao entered the door and was about to salute Mr. Yang, Mr. Yang stretched out his hand to stop him and asked him eagerly. The general manager of the previous sales point came to him and said that he could sell a batch of arms to him first, but he asked for cash. Of course he was very excited, but considering that he just had some money, he was reluctant to part with it. The point of sale had given them a batch of arms on credit before, and he thought he would be able to get them on credit later, so he didn't buy it. But the further time passed, the more he felt that something was wrong. Although his grandson later persuaded him to buy a batch of arms and put them in his hands, he still refused. There was nothing he could do, he was really poor and scared. During this period of time, he finally relied on arms and asked the people below to go outside to get some crystal nuclei and come back, but he couldn't bear to take them all out again. Besides, even if you take it out, you won't be able to buy a lot of arms. Hey, thanks to Hall Master Leng's sales point, he took the opportunity to collect a lot of taxes and fees. Otherwise, relying solely on their Yangdao base, they may not even have enough money to buy vegetables and food for the residents in the base. Business is very good. It is said that the spot goods have been sold out. Now we can only place pre-orders. The delivery date has been scheduled to next week, Meng Mao said anxiously. Arms are in such short supply and they haven't been able to place orders in advance, which is troublesome. The arms they bought before were barely enough. Bullets and grenades are consumables, and they don't have much left at the moment. Need supplies urgently. Mr. Yang suddenly felt worried. Blame me for this. I should have placed the order long ago. He patted his thigh with regret. He finally understood what it means to have a weak intestine. Xiaobao on the side was amused by Mr. Yang's action. The laughter instantly attracted the attention of Mr. Yang and Meng Mao. Mr. Yang's complexion suddenly turned a little pale. Ahem, Grandpa, don't be angry, let's find a way to remedy it first. Xiaobao coughed and stopped laughing. Mr. Yang's expression became better now. How else can I make up for it? I didn't hear what Meng Mao said. The delivery date has been scheduled to next week. The point of sale only recognizes crystal cores, but you can only get crystal cores if you have someone in hand. They are currently very short of men. According to the current situation, it has been difficult to organize several large-scale zombie hunting operations. Without arms, the risks faced by people with superpowers when going out are much greater. Such risks are not worth it. But if we don't go out and let everyone stay in the base and wait for him to place an order and pick up the goods, it would be a waste of time. Now all major bases can buy arms. If someone goes out with arms to hunt zombies and eat meat, and let them watch, then he will be angry to death. I really regretted it so much that my internal organs ached. He had every chance to get the spot directly before. Hey, it's all his own fault. Meng Mao also looked at Xiaobao, expecting Xiaobao to make some valuable suggestions. This is not about seeking medical treatment in a hurry, but about having confidence in Xiaobao. Since their young master's son came back, there are almost no suggestions or things he has done that are not impressive. Master son's behavior is completely unlike that of a child. What's more, their young master son has a close relationship with the fifth branch of the Thunder Base. If he comes forward, there may be some hope in this matter. I guess the sales point must have prepared a batch of goods for us, and they are still there. Xiaobao analyzed. Mr. Yang and Meng Mao were both stunned. What do you say? Mr. Yang asked. According to my understanding of our boss, she has set up a sales point in the Yangdao base to trade with major bases in City B, so she must have made foolproof arrangements for our Yangdao base, Xiaobao said. The Yangdao base has imperfect facilities and weak defense. If it encounters a larger zombie wave, it will definitely not be able to withstand it. There is also the Southern Army base. Xiaobao looked at his grandfather. Because of the helicopter and the two hostages, the boss has already made a feud with the Southern Army base. The Southern Army base cannot directly deal with the Thunder base, but it can come to us and cause trouble. Once a fight breaks out, we will never be the opponent of the Southern Army base. Mr. Yang's face darkened. He actually knows all this. He actually took a big risk by cooperating with Hall Master Leng. But thinking that the probability of the Southern Army base attacking him was low, and Hall Master Leng could bring hope to Yangdao base, he risked offending the Southern Army base and did it. At least for now, it seems that the choice is correct. Except for Commander Chen's visit once before, there has been no other action at the Southern Army base. This is actually not difficult to understand. If the Southern Army base really attacks him, Hall Master Leng will definitely not sit idly by. Although the Thunder base is far away in City A, they now have helicopters. It only takes more than half an hour to fly here. This is really the case. The Southern Army base did not harm the Thunder base at all, but it is very likely that it will be poisoned by the Thunder base. Therefore, as long as the Southern Army base has brains, they will not dare to act rashly. Xiaobao looked at Mr. Yang with a smile. I know what you are thinking, Grandpa, but everything is possible. What if the Southern Army base jumps over the wall because it doesn't want our boss to expand the business, and leads the major bases in B City to become stronger, threatening his dominance? If you have anything to say, just say it. Mr. Yang lost his patience and simply said to Xiaobao. I guess the boss must have stocked up a batch of arms for us. If an accident happens, this batch of arms will be in our hands immediately to help us tide over the difficulties. Xiaobao continued, the batch of arms we got on credit before, it should be just part of this batch of arms. Mr. Yang and Meng Mao were stunned at the same time. After the two looked at each other, they somewhat agreed with Xiaobao's words. The arms they had taken on credit before were not obtained at once, but divided many times. This almost gave them the illusion that there was no shortage of arms at the sales point, and the quantity seemed endless. It would be understandable if they had prepared enough weapons early in the morning. The point of sale that gave them so many arms on credit must have been instructed by Hall Master Leng, hoping that they could use those arms to defend themselves. It's a pity that they can't sit still if they get the guy. Going out to hunt zombies and get crystal cores is the inevitable result. But in this way, they have a crystal core in their hands. Knowing that they already have money in their hands, it's no wonder that the point of sale is unwilling to continue to give them credit. Then, is there any way to get the remaining arms on credit? Yang Lokong asked Xiaobao. Xiaobao glanced at Mr. Yang. It's already this time, are you still thinking about getting credit? It's good to be able to get the goods in stock, why don't you think about those? Meng Mao also looked at Mr. Yang with some helplessness. He knew that their Yangdao base was really poor, but it was precisely because of this that they needed to buy arms. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 635. Under the current situation, making zombie crystal cores is the fastest and most cost-effective way to make money. Then buy it. Let's buy as much as we can, Mr. Yang finally said loudly. It was his fault before, and he can't continue to be wrong. Good things must be bought quickly and held in hand. Meng Mao immediately looked at Xiaobao with joy in his eyes. Now the city lord has no problem, it's up to them, master son. Meng Mao, go to the sales point, make an appointment with manager CAO in the name of Grandpa, and ask him to come to our city lord's mansion for dinner in the evening, Xiaobao said to Meng Mao. Meng Mao was stunned and looked at Mr. Yang. Yang Lao waved his hand towards him, indicating that he should do as Xiaobao said. Meng Mao hurriedly clasped his fists at Mr. Yang, and then hurried out. After Meng Mao left, Mr. Yang looked at his grandson with a leisurely expression. Such a big thing has happened and he is still so leisurely and contented. Should he praise him for his big heart, or should he be angry that he didn't take the matter of Yangdao base to heart? Grandpa, drink some green tea to relieve the heat. Since I have taken over this matter, I can settle it for you. Seeing his grandfather's anxiety, Xiaobao said with a smile. This time when he came back to Yangdao base, his mentality was really different from his previous life. Perhaps because it was confirmed that he would move the Yangdao base to the Thunder Safe Zone in the later period, he was not as cautious and fearful as in his previous life. He is not alone in this life. He has Len Ning and the fifth branch behind him. Who dares to look down on and bully him anymore? Hey, I hope your analysis is correct. Mr. Yang sighed, went to the side and sat down again. On the other side, the point of sale business was in full swing, and the salesman almost gave up on receiving orders. Buyers saw that the delivery period was continuously being delayed, so they all increased their orders one by one, just to get the arms as early as possible. As a result, the delivery period for subsequent buyers will be postponed again. At the end of the day, not only the stock at the sales office was sold out, but the pre-orders were already scheduled for half a month. After get off work, manager CAO was having a meeting with the supervisors of the sales department to summarize today's sales situation. But knowing that Meng Mao had been waiting for him outside, he had no choice but to end the meeting quickly. On the way to the city lord's mansion, Mr. Yang is so polite. It doesn't matter. He invited me to dinner, manager CAO said from the back seat of the car. Although there was a smile on his face, he was actually not very happy in his heart. He had taken the initiative to find the old man several times before, thinking of selling him the remaining batch of arms that the previous hall master had arranged for Yangdao base. On the other hand, he didn't want to spend a penny but only wanted to take advantage of credit. When he came to see me today, it was probably related to this matter. Now the arms business at his point of sale is doing well, and the deposit received exceeds the cost of the remaining goods. If the hall master hadn't given instructions before, saying that this batch of goods was to be prepared separately for Yangdao base, he would have really wanted to sell it directly to another base for crystal accounting. It also saves you the trouble of continuing to struggle with this stingy old man. Hey, but these are just thoughts. When he is doing business on someone else's territory, he must be given the right face. So, it's best if he can come up with real money tonight so that he can give him something. Otherwise, it's another waste of time. Hey, it's not just our city lord who wants to invite you to dinner tonight. It was our master's son who suggested it to the city lord. Meng Mao glanced at manager CAO in the rearview mirror of the car. Young master, manager CAO suddenly became interested. He had heard of this young master before when he was at the Thunder base. Despite his young age, his supernatural talents are top-notch, and he and several other helmsmen have recognized their leader as the boss. Strictly speaking, this young master can be considered one of the key members of the predecessor of the fifth branch. The main reason why the hall master takes so much care of Yangdao base now is also because of this young master. Tonight's meal was invited by the young master at the suggestion of the city lord, so it's probably going to be a bit of a drama. Thinking of this, manager CAO became more energetic. Yes. Our young master has been arranged by the city lord to familiarize himself with military affairs since he came back. Now that he has joined the military, he has less things to do. He can't wait to meet you, Meng Mao said with a smile. Haha, it's my turn to visit the young master first, manager CAO said hurriedly. You're welcome. Soon, Meng Mao rushed to the city lord's mansion with manager CAO. What happened next still shocked manager CAO. Before he came, he knew that although this young master was young, he was definitely not an ordinary person. After he actually met the person and communicated with him, he realized that he had overestimated the young master. In the end, Mr. Yang spent half of the money to buy the remaining arms in his hand, and promised to make up the remaining money within a week. In order to show his sincerity, Mr. Yang also took out the land deed and said that he could exchange the land deed of the sales point with him. He originally didn't want to agree, but the other party had already gone to this extent, and it was really hard for him to refuse. In addition, the young master also stood up as a guarantee, saying that if the debt was not repaid by then, he would go to the Thunder base to treat people's injuries and make money to pay off the debt. Everyone in the Thunder base knows about the young master's healing abilities. He indeed has the ability to repay debts. The grandfather and grandson were singing together, so he had no choice but to agree. However, before handing over the goods, he repeatedly told the two of them that he would not be able to explain this to the headquarters within the time limit. In order that the subsequent friendship between the two parties will not be affected, I hope they will keep their promise. The grandfather and grandson naturally agreed and happily bought the goods. In this way, the people at Yangdao base are equipped with weapons. Soon, 3 days passed. The arms business at the point of sale is still very hot. Those buyers who had placed orders before came to pick up the goods and placed some more orders at the same time. At the same time, on this day, an uninvited guest finally came to the point of sale again, someone from Hangudong. Although Guo Qiudong has never met Len Ning, after the previous negotiations and Xie's defection, his guard against Len Ning has been raised to the highest level. Knowing that Len Ning did not come to Yangdao base every day, he could only send someone to make an appointment here. He was concerned about the strength of the Thunder base and did not dare to attack the Yangdao base rashly. But it is difficult to watch Len Ning continue to expand his influence in City B, and at the same time help those bases in City B become stronger. He had asked Commander Chen to go first just to test Len Ning's tone. It's a pity that he didn't even get the opportunity for both parties to sit down and negotiate together. He is a waste. He had waited for so long and could no longer wait. After the helicopter returned, Len Ning soon received the news that Guo Qiudong wanted to meet her. Feeling a little surprised, Len Ning chose to agree to this meeting. Then he seemed to remember something, got up, left the office, and went to the dungeon. The Wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Qi Now. Chapter 636. In the dungeon, Han Yu was teasing the zombies across from him with a straw in his hand, making silly giggles haha from time to time. Len Ning's appearance had no impact on her. Len Ning observed Han Yu inquiringly for a while. Just 5 days ago, the people below reported to her that Han Yu had gone crazy and asked her for instructions on how to deal with her. After all, it is very dangerous to lock a madman and zombies together. She didn't believe that Han Yu was really crazy at the time and didn't pay much attention to it. Looking at it now, in such a narrow space, can it be regarded as a miracle that a madman was not bitten by a zombie? Han Yu, Len Ning suddenly shouted. Hee hee, hee hee. Han Yu continued to smile stupidly, as if she didn't hear Len Ning speak, let alone know that Len Ning was calling her. No need to pretend, I came here this time to let you go, Len Ning said. Han Yu was startled for a moment, but soon she laughed silly haha again. Len Ning raised the corner of his mouth. It was indeed an act. But yes, in such an environment, if you don't force yourself to face it, you will soon be unable to bear it and choose to commit suicide. Guo Qiudong asked me to meet tomorrow, Len Ning said. I decided to let you go back to the South Army base. Haha, it's fun, haha. Han Yu continued to giggle. Len Ning frowned and looked at Han Yu. I'll give you a minute to think about it. If you are willing to cooperate, you can leave here right away. If you don't want to, then you can continue to stay here and accompany Chen Xing until he dies. Han Yu looked at Chen Xing, who was baring his teeth and claws in front of her, and struggled in her heart. She wanted to leave, even in her dreams, but how could Len Ning let her go so easily? There are still 30 seconds. Len Ning raised his wrist. Han Yu still didn't look back. 10 seconds left. Len Ning looked at the watch again. Unfortunately, Han Yu still did not respond. A flash of doubt flashed across Len Ning's face. Time's up. Then he lowered his wrist. She was really unsure at this moment. Did she really think too much? Is Han Yu really crazy? Without another word, Len Ning turned and left. Finally, when she reached the stairs. Wait a minute! Han Yu's voice sounded from behind her. Len Ning stopped and raised the corners of his mouth in an arc. Then he turned around and returned to the cell. Han Yu had turned around at this time. When he saw Len Ning looking at him, fear flashed in his eyes. Can you really let me go? He asked Len Ning cowardly. Yes. Len Ning raised a cold smile on his lips. What are the conditions? Han Yu felt happy and asked with a fearful expression. Be my internal response, Len Ning said calmly. What do you mean? Han Yu's heart sank. She knew that Len Ning would never let her go. After you go to the Nanjun base, help me monitor the movements of South Korea building and the Nanjun base and report to me, Len Ning said solemnly. Since you don't want to die, don't blame me for continuing to torment you. By the way, there's also your scumbag father. Han Yu was silent. Just when Len Ning lost her patience and thought Han Yu was unwilling, she suddenly said, How can I report to you? Len Ning was stunned and the corners of his mouth raised. After all, she was the one who looked up to her. Don't worry about this, I will take the initiative to contact you later. Communication will slowly begin to recover soon, and all this will not be a problem. Okay, Han Yu agreed immediately. In addition, you'd better know what you should say and what shouldn't be said about what happened to you at the Thunder Base. A cold smile flashed across Len Ning's eyes. I'm well taken care of at the Thunder Base and don't know any secrets here, Han Yu said immediately, not daring to look into Len Ning's eyes. Len Ning nodded. As long as you behave well, the secret of your lifelong infertility and your plan to kill Chen Xing will be kept forever. Han Yu trembled. I will definitely act according to your instructions, he said quickly. Len Ning glanced at Han Yu with satisfaction. Then he left. Not long after Len Ning left, someone actually took Han Yu out of the dungeon. Then it was the same as when she was let out last time. She got a chance to take a bath, and then moved into a clean and comfortable room. Then on the third day, she was brought to Len Ning again, and then followed Len Ning onto a helicopter. Looking at the Thunder Base getting further and further away from her, Han Yu felt both scared and excited. This time she felt that she was really close to freedom. As soon as Len Ning arrived, Meng Mao and the people from the Southern Army Base were waiting for her. Master Len, please. After the people from the Southern Army Base introduced themselves, they led the way for Len Ning. Meng Mao, a serious member of the Yang Dao base, stood aside. Len Ning glanced at Meng Mao and followed the leader. The behavior of this southern military base is indeed overbearing. The agreed meeting address was at the city lord's mansion, which was determined by both parties in advance. The study room of the city lord's mansion. As soon as Len Ning arrived, Mr. Yang went out to greet her. Len Ning greeted Mr. Yang and followed her into the study. When he saw Guo Qiudong sitting upright not far away, Len Ning's heart suddenly became gloomy. When Mr. Yang saw the chill in Len Ning's eyes, he hurriedly introduced him to Len Ning with a smile. Master Len, this is Commander Han, the Supreme Commander of the Southern Army Base. Only then did Guo Qiudong look at Len Ning. I was a little surprised to see that the other party was just a very young girl. Commander Han, this is Hall Master Len. The Hall Master of the 5th branch of Thunder Base is also Mr. Lei's wife. Mr. Yang hurriedly stepped forward to introduce him to Guo Qiudong. Guo Qiudong looked at Len Ning with a strong sense of inquiry in his eyes, and said nothing for a long time. Coincidentally, Len Ning also looked at him wildly, without any awe in his eyes, and even with some carelessness in his eyes. Guo Qiudong was a little angry, but he controlled his anger well. Hall Master Len, long time no see. Finally, he chose to speak first. Len Ning raised the corners of his mouth slightly and walked towards the chair not far away. It's not easy for Commander Han to endure it for so long before coming to see me, he said casually as he walked. Then he sat down on the chair calmly. Guo Qiudong's mouth twitched. Mr. Yang hurriedly smiled at Guo Qiudong and signaled him to calm down. The Nan Army Base is busy with military affairs and I haven't had time to spare. I should have met with Hall Master Len a long time ago. Guo Qiudong reminded himself again of the purpose of coming today and suppressed the anger in his heart. Len Ning patted his arm as if dusting him. Obviously he didn't take Guo Qiudong's words to heart. I have arranged for someone to express my willingness to negotiate with Hall Master Len before. Can we talk now? Guo Qiudong asked directly to Len Ning. Len Ning glanced at Guo Qiudong and said, okay. Surprisingly, he agreed readily. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 637. A hint of joy flashed in Han Qiudong's eyes. Then he looked at Mr. Yang with a smile on his face. There are still some things in my house, so you can talk about it slowly. Talk about it slowly. Mr. Yang said and retreated. When he left, he glanced at Len Ning several times. Frightened by Guo Qiudong's power, he had to give him this face. But he knew in his heart that Guo Qiudong's coming to see Len Ning might not be a good thing for him. Now Len Ning's sales point is doing very well in his territory, and he has taken a lot of advantage along with it. Guo Qiudong is now looking for Len Ning. In addition to wanting to resolve the previous conflicts with her, it is very likely that he also likes Len Ning's sales point. If that's the case, that's not a good thing. It's a pity that Yangdao base's current strength is not qualified to compete with the Southern Army base, otherwise they would not let South Korea enter. Hey, I thought back then he was also respected by everyone on the road, Master Yang, but I didn't expect that now he would be reduced to looking at a woman's face. After Mr. Yang left the door, Guo Qiudong looked at Len Ning again. Little girl, just as Guo Qiudong started to speak, Len Ning reached out to stop him from continuing. I brought Han Yu. As for Chen Xing, I can't let him go for the time being, Len Ning said. Han Qiudong looked happy. Where is he? Chong Len Ning asked immediately. My daughter is back. This is great news. As for Chen Xing, that's not his son. Besides, he has already negotiated with Len Ning. If she doesn't let him go, what can he do? I will give you 5,000 space jades as agreed, and also tell you the address of the base where you can purchase space jades. Guo Qiudong restrained his excitement and said to Len Ning. Len Ning curled her lips and said, thank you. She was indeed in urgent need of a large amount of space jade at the moment, and the condition offered by Guo Qiudong made her heart beat. What about the trade between the Southern Army base and the Thunder base? Guo Qiudong looked at Len Ning again. He had thought it over and discussed it with his people. The strength of the Thunder base has now greatly increased, and it is no longer possible to kill them, and even poor operation may bring disaster to themselves. In this case, they might as well choose to join forces with the Thunder base. If the Southern Army base and the Thunder base can form an alliance, the territory and population of the entire southern China will be harvested by them. There are more places after the south, and it can even be extended to the entire country of China. Except for arms and medicine, all other commodities are open to you, Len Ning said. The people in the Southern Army base are also human beings, and they also need food supplies and daily necessities. She was willing to sell them to the Confederate military base. But arms and medicines are different. In the early days of the apocalypse, the number of arms can largely determine the strength of a base. As for medicines, although she currently only sells San Miguel pills, these pills are the secret weapon for superpowers to gain vitality at critical moments. It can be regarded as an extremely important strategic material. In order to prevent arms and San Miguel pills from falling into the hands of the South Army base, product sales points have also imposed special restrictions on these products. Each major base can only purchase the quantity of goods within its own limit, and when buying, they must promise not to conduct private transactions with people outside their respective bases. If discovered, they will be disqualified from purchasing. Of course, this cannot absolutely guarantee that things will not flow into the Southern Army base, but it is enough to suppress those who have ulterior motives from the beginning, or who may be approached by the Southern Army base. Han Qiudong's face darkened. Is this a provocation? Then he looked at Len Ning dangerously. By simply restricting their southern military base from purchasing important supplies, isn't this a clear indication that we are going against them? The Southern Army base is rich in weapons and equipment. Do you still need to buy it from me? Len Ning looked at South Korea building with a smile. Also, you secretly made high-level zombies to use high-level crystal cores. There are many good things, but you still want the pills in my hand. South Korea building was shocked. She actually knew. Yes, thanks to that traitor who participated in countless things, big and small, when he was by his side. He was also involved in raising high-level zombies. Damn it! Guo Qiudong's eyes turned cold as he looked at Len Ning, and a desire to silence arose in his heart. This secret is too shocking. If it is known to the major bases, the Southern Army base will definitely become the target of public criticism. Come on, put away your expression. I'm not interested in exposing your dirty laundry just yet, and don't cause trouble for me. Len Ning didn't take Guoqiudong's threat at all. Zigu took a bottle of mineral water from his space ring to drink. Giving your daughter back to you is an expression of my sincerity. Let's make our own money without harming others. Naturally, she earns money by selling goods at the point of sale. And he is the one doing the dirty work of making high-level crystal nuclei. The value of high-end crystal cores is much higher than that of low-end crystal cores. The ability to generate money from Hang Udong's business is actually quite extraordinary. Guoqiudong's heart sank. Then a smile appeared on his face. If you agree to persuade Mr. Lei to let Thunder Base join the project, I can share the proceeds with you. Guoqiudong looked at Len Ning and said. Since this secret has been known to the Thunder Base, recruiting them to join is the best way. The Thunder have a good base, and if they are willing to join, they can expand. And the sales point can also go to our Southern Army base. Our Southern Army base is much better in terms of safety and living environment than here. I can also provide you with more protection. If we cooperate, I can also introduce more powerful base buyers to you, so you don't have to worry about sales. Han Qiudong directly threw out more positive factors. Unfortunately, Len Ning just smiled and was still not interested. We make money in different ways. We are not the same people. The smile on Len Ning's lips was tinged with irony. I came to City B just to make money and do business. I have no interest in anything else. The expression on Guoqiudong's face became a little stiff. As I said before, I am determined to resolve conflicts with you so that the water in the well does not interfere with the river. Len Ning looked at Guoqiudong again, but it doesn't mean that I am afraid of you. Losing the sales point in City B means I only lose business. But you, I'm afraid you will suffer a disaster. Len Ning's eyes suddenly became fierce. Guoqiudong's heart couldn't help but shrink when he saw it. Only then did he realize how terrifying the woman in front of him was. Thinking again of her previous terrifying methods and how difficult she was. So, why don't everyone just stay calm? Len Ning smiled at Guoqiudong. Guoqiudong felt a chill in his heart. Okay. The water in the well does not interfere with the water in the river. Then he barely suppressed the discomfort in his heart and said in a deep voice. Looking at this situation, things are destined to be unresolved today. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kge Now. Chapter 638. Len Ning raised the corner of his mouth and stood up from the chair. I've brought the people. We hand over the goods and deliver the goods. Where is your goods? Then he looked at South Korea building. Guoqiudong took out a space jade from the space ring. He picked it up and shook it at Len Ning. It's all inside. Then he placed the space jade on the small coffee table beside him. Len Ning raised the corners of his lips and looked toward the door. Bring people in, then he shouted at the door. Soon the door opened, and a person led a slender woman in from the outside. Guoqiudong looked at the door anxiously, his thoughts completely distracted by Han Yu. Master, the visitor led Han Yu into the house and saluted Len Ning. Han Yu stood behind the man with his head lowered, not daring to make a sound. Len Ning glanced at Han Yu, then turned to look at Han Qiudong. Guoqiudong came to his senses, stood up quickly, picked up the space jade on the coffee table and threw it towards Len Ning. Then he walked towards Han Yu. Len Ning took the space jade and inspected it and found that there was indeed a lot of jade inside. I randomly selected a few pieces to test and found that they all had spaces, so I felt relieved. It's Dad. I'm your dad. Guoqiudong stepped forward excitedly and pinched Han Yu's arms. Han Yu was in pain, but she endured the pain and threw herself into Guoqiudong's arms. Dad, I finally see you. Well. It's all over, and I'm back with Dad. Don't cry, Dad will make it up to you in the future. Guoqiudong felt a tenderness in his heart. This is his daughter, the only relative he has left in the world. Dad, we love you. Han Yu started to cry. This was a moment where I literally cried because of the outpouring of emotion. She lingers and lives just for today. She finally found her father, the father who could change her future life. Len Ning glanced at the sensational father and daughter and put the spatial jade into his own spatial ring. Then he walked outside. When passing by Han Yu, Len Ning glanced at her intentionally. This sight made Han Yu's heart tremble, and she didn't dare to move. Fortunately, Len Ning didn't say anything, just smiled at her and left. Han Yu's heart suddenly relaxed and she continued to bury her head in Guo Qiudong's chest. Let's see what happens next step by step. Not long after Len Ning walked out of the study, he met Mr. Yang and Xiaobao. Master, please come this way. Mr. Yang didn't say much, he just smiled and guided Len Ning. Len Ning had some guesses in his mind and did not refuse. Soon, Mr. Yang and Xiaobao led Len Ning into a side hall. What does Mr. Yang want from me? Len Ning did not sit down, but asked Mr. Yang with a smile. Hall Master Len, don't worry, sit down and talk, old Yang said. Then he gave his grandson a look. Xiaobao immediately went to the side to pour tea for Len Ning. Boss, let's sit down and chat for a while. After pouring the tea, Xiaobao patted the seat beside the coffee table leisurely. Len Ning was stunned. Then he curled up his lips, walked over and sat down. I took a sip of the tea and thought it tasted very good. Oh, I'm not an outsider. If you want to ask anything, you can ask directly. Len Ning put down the teacup with a smile and said to Mr. Yang and Xiaobao. Mr. Yang quickly apologized and was about to speak out of embarrassment when his grandson said, Boss, what conditions did Guo Qiudong negotiate with you? Len Ning suddenly raised his eyes and looked at Xiaobao. Xiaobao's face immediately tightened. You didn't say anything about the point of sale, right? He asked instead. You can always say this. Mr. Yang also looked at Len Ning nervously. Len Ning raised the corner of his mouth and said, I said it. He asked me to move the sales point to the southern military base and said he would give me various preferential policies. Mr. Yang's expression suddenly froze, and he looked at Xiaobao anxiously. His old face doesn't work, so he relies on his grandson. Boss, you didn't agree, did you? Xiaobao knew that the relationship between Len Ning and the Southern Army base was not that simple. Even if she had an idea, she probably wouldn't take action so quickly. Why do you agree? Len Ning asked with a smile. For a moment, Mr. Yang and Xiaobao breathed a sigh of relief. There's no need to be so nervous. We have agreed before that I will only cooperate with you in City B. After saying that, Len Ning glanced at Xiaobao intentionally. I remember our agreement. Xiaobao smiled and climbed onto the chair next to Len Ning. That's enough, our Yangdao base will never let you down. We are a little behind the southern military base now, but in a few days we will definitely catch up. Seeing Xiaobao's somewhat rude behavior, Mr. Yang wanted to stop him. But seeing that Len Ning didn't say anything, but instead had a smile on his face, Mr. Yang didn't say much. You are quite confident? Len Ning glanced at Xiaobao with a smile. That's right, it doesn't matter who I am hanging out with. Xiaobao took the opportunity to flatter him. Ha 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 ha. Len Ning laughed out loud. Mr. Yang smiled and felt completely relieved. I also went and sat down not far away. You are looking for me just to confirm whether I want to move the sales point. After laughing for a while, Len Ning asked Mr. Yang. A flash of embarrassment flashed across Mr. Yang's face, not entirely. Then he looked at his grandson again. Xiaobao couldn't help but laugh. Grandpa wants to buy another batch of arms from you, he said directly. Len Ning put away his smile, glanced at Xiaobao, and then looked at Mr. Yang inquiringly. Yeah, Mr. Yang nodded sheepishly. Everyone has been very excited since we got the arms. There are a lot of zombie hunting activities organized by superpowers because they have to defend the base. There are not many people in the military department who can go out to hunt zombies. Once given the opportunity, soldiers will go out and fight until their ammunition is almost exhausted, and they will basically never come back. In addition, the folk superpowers are even crazier. Some capable superpowers reported to the military headquarters almost every day. After buying arms from the military headquarters, they set off with the large army to get crystal cores. Some brave ones even organize their own troops among the private sector, and when they have enough people, they set out to hunt zombies. In this way, the tax revenue of Yangdao base will naturally be much higher. Coupled with the price difference earned from selling arms to civilians with supernatural powers, the money comes quickly. But these weapons are consumed very quickly, especially the bullets, so I'm afraid they won't last long. The people below have made calculations. Including the batch of goods he delivered 2 days ago, the existing arms inventory of Yangdao base will not last for a week. After discovering this problem, he went to see manager CAO last night. I wanted to ask him if I could jump in line or something, and also offered to pay cash for the goods. But despite this, manager CAO still rejected him, saying that he did not have such great authority. However, manager CAO still gave him some advice. It is said that their hall master is coming to Yangdao base today. If they have anything to say, it is best for them to tell their hall master directly. When he thought about it, he felt that what manager CAO said made sense. Hall master Leng has always been very friendly towards their Yangdao base, so he might be able to help with this. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 639. So after he left the study just now to let Hall leader Leng and Commander Han talk about the matter alone, he didn't go far. He just wanted to wait for Hall Master Leng to come out, and he and his grandson would ask her to help accommodate this matter. Master Leng, look. Mr. Yang looked at Len Ning longingly. Len Ning was stunned. What did manager CAO say? He asked without directly agreeing. At that moment, Mr. Yang's expression became tense. Oh, I remember he told me that he just sold you a batch of arms 2 days ago. Len Ning seemed to have remembered something, and then asked, it seems that the payment has not been settled yet. Mr. Yang looked even more nervous now. Yes. I made an appointment with manager CAO to settle the payment within a week. Mr. Yang looked a little embarrassed. Len Ning raised the corner of his mouth and turned to look at Xiaobao. I haven't even paid off the money before, so I have the nerve to ask for goods again? Haha, we must pay cash for new goods, Xiaobao said with a smile. Mr. Yang nodded. Don't worry, boss, for those arrears, we will definitely make up for them within a week, Xiaobao continued. Seeing Len Ning's unmoved look, Xiaobao continued, besides, aren't the sales points continuing to operate? If it doesn't work, you can deduct it back through tax deductions. Are they serious about this account? Never thought about lie. Mainly because they are really strapped for funds right now. Yes, Mr. Yang followed. Len Ning finally looked at Mr. Yang again. Let's do this. I won't say much. For the sake of the friendship between our two families, you have settled the account for the previous batch of arms, and I will give priority to the subsequent shipments to you. Tax deduction? That is a last resort operation. When she went to the military headquarters to place an order and pay for the goods, she had to pay in real money, but there was no reason to give credit to Yangdao base. In the past, giving them credit was a last resort, but now that they have tasted the sweetness, it is time to stop. Mr. Yang's old face wrinkled up. He looked at his grandson, hoping he could think of a solution. Now, finally, the military department has some money in its account, which is almost enough to purchase a batch of arms. If they use it to pay off debts, how can they find the money to buy new arms? Ahem, boss, we really didn't want to pay on credit on purpose this time. The balance sheet is indeed tight. Xiaobao's little face also wrinkled. How about you add the interest? I promise, I will pay you back as soon as I have money, Xiaobao promised Len Ning with a serious look on his face. Len Ning couldn't help laughing. With the growth rate of zombies, the interest rate is not enough for inflation. Let's think of some practical methods. Zombies will only continue to get stronger, high-level crystal cores will slowly increase, and the number of low-level crystal cores will gradually decrease. She only came here to collect cash to pay bills and get goods for Thunder Military Headquarters. She never thought about using it for financial management or anything like that. For businessmen, capital turnover can continue to create profits. Xiaobao glanced at Len Ning helplessly, then turned to his grandfather. His eyes said, "If you don't pay off the debt first, I'm afraid it won't work with the boss if you continue to get goods. How about you tell me what we can give you to pay off your debt now?" Xiaobao was heartbroken and simply asked Len Ning. Mr. Yang looked shocked, but didn't say much. Then he looked at Len Ning, waiting for what she would say. Len Ning was stunned. After scanning Xiaobao a few times, he basically concluded that the Yangdao base might not be able to get the money out. "Why don't you give me the vegetable base you are using now and the nearby land? In addition, the building of the sales point," Len Ning said calmly. The combined value of these two places was far less than the amount of money Yangdao base owed, but she couldn't find anything more valuable and meaningful to her. After she bought the site, she no longer had to invest in site fees, and at the same time, she could avoid any subsequent disputes about the site, which was somewhat meaningful. Mr. Yang's face was a little stiff. "Okay, that's the decision," Xiaobao already said. Mr. Yang immediately looked at Xiaobao. Seeing Xiaobao nodding towards him, he endured it and finally did not say anything against it. "Okay, just do as Hall Master Leng said." He followed. Len Ning felt satisfied when he saw this. "Then I will arrange for someone to come over and sign a contract with you later then," he said. "Okay. What about the new arms order?" Mr. Yang quickly looked at Len Ning. "You can just go to Manager CAO to place an order normally." "I'll tell him later and let him arrange the goods for you first," Len Ning said immediately. Now that the previously suspended factory at the military headquarters has been reopened, production will soon catch up. Under such circumstances, in fact, arms orders from major bases do not need to wait that long. "Okay. Thank you, Hall Master Leng." A flash of excitement flashed in Yang Lao's eyes. With arms, Yangdao base will soon be able to save money. "Oh, by the way. Since I bought the land, the vegetable base will be arranged immediately. Didn't you say before that there are many people without jobs in the Yangdao base?" Len Ning remembered something and asked the two of them. "Yeah. But they are mainly ordinary people without special powers," Xiaobao said immediately. "It doesn't matter, what I want the most are ordinary people," Len Ning said with a smile on his face. "I would also like to trouble you to help make arrangements. This recruitment needs at least 300 people. The demand for vegetables and food in City B is not small, so she decided to directly send a few wood-type superpowers from City A to support the demand, and at the same time, train some wood-type superpowers directly at Yangdao base. Producing crops is a very simple matter and does not require a lot of manpower. However, there is a need for a lot of workers to serve wood-type superpowers. Processes such as tilling the soil, planting, harvesting, and processing of finished products all require manual labor. 300 people is just an initial estimate. When the breeding industry in City B develops, the demand for vegetables and food will be even greater. By then, more workers will be needed." "Okay. We'll make arrangements later," Mr. Yang said excitedly. In the last days, what ordinary people can do in the base is very limited, and it is difficult to generate economic value. Now Hall Master Leng can help them find employment for 300 people at a time, turning these people from burdens into productive forces, which is a great help to them. Also, Hall Master Leng is finally going to open a vegetable base in their Yangdao base. What does that mean? Haha, it won't be long before the sales point will be transformed into a subsidiary of Leng's. Their Yangdao base will receive greater investment when the time comes, and many industries in the base will also be driven along. The opportunity for Yangdao base is coming. Yeah, Len Ning replied with a smile. Then he got up from the chair. I have some things to do at the point of sale, so I have to leave first. Let me see you off. Mr. Yang quickly stood up. Seeing Xiaobao also getting down from the chair, Len Ning smiled and did not refuse. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 640. The grandfather and grandson sent Len Ning out of the gate of the city lord's mansion. Unexpectedly, they ran into Guo Qiudong and others who were preparing to leave for their return journey. Yang Lao was extremely reluctant to go to Guo Qiudong to greet them and see them off, because he had just learned that Guo Qiudong was poaching him in his house. The sales point is the lifeblood of their Yangdao base. If they were poached by him, the Yangdao base would be in trouble. But the situation is pressing, and their Yangdao base cannot afford to offend the Southern Army base for the time being. As a city lord, he can only keep his tail between his legs. So, Mr. Yang went over with a smile on his face. Len Ning caught a glimpse of Mr. Yang's expression that he didn't cover up in time just now, and felt a little funny in his heart. Without paying much attention, he turned around and left. Guo Qiudong naturally noticed Len Ning, and felt a little angry when he saw that she saw him as if she didn't. But he didn't say much and endured it secretly. On this trip today, although he failed to negotiate cooperation with Len Ning, he at least got his daughter back. For other matters, let him wait until he returns to the Southern Army base to make plans. As for Han Yu, ever since Len Ning showed up, she wanted to find a dark corner to hide, for fear that Len Ning would notice her. She waited until Len Ning was far away before she dared to show her face. When Guo Qiudong saw Han Yu's appearance, he felt distressed again. I thought that I must make up for my daughter more when I go back. Len Ning went directly to the sales point after leaving the city lord's mansion. After explaining the matter to manager Cao, he drove people back to the Thunder base. When he returned to Thunder base, Len Ning realized that it was getting late. It's 11:10, not far from lunchtime. Remembering that she had been busy with Lengs and the sales point these days, and rarely ate with Lei Ting to enjoy their time together, Len Ning simply took out the car and went directly to the military office building. Len Ning was very happy when he thought about going to see Lei Lei along the way. Knock knock knock. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Len Ning knocked on the door of Lei Lei's office. Come in. Thunder's voice soon came from inside. Len Ning pushed the door open and went in. In just a moment, Lei Lei dropped what he was doing, got up and walked towards her. Len Ning smiled and threw herself into Lei Lei's arms, feeling as if her whole heart was filled to the brim. Lei Lei buried his head on Len Ning's neck and took 2 deep breaths. Why are you here? Then he asked in a hoarse voice. I miss you. Len Ning murmured softly. Really thought about it? Even though they are a couple, they still sleep together every night. But they were too busy during this period, and the time to talk to each other was several times less than before. Lei Lei's heart felt hot. I miss you too. He lowered his voice. Then Lei Lei let go of Len Ning, leaned over and captured Len Ning's lips. What followed was a passionate and lingering moment, which soon aroused Len Ning's emotions, and the two of them kissed passionately. Click, dividing line. Ha ha. Len Ning laughed out loud while lying in Lei Lei's arms. What are you laughing at? Lei Lei stretched out his hand and scratched Len Ning's nose. Len Ning felt itchy and pushed Lei Lei's hand away when he was about to reach out and scratch again. Don't make trouble. Seeing that Lei Lei did not give up and was preparing to continue playing with her, Len Ning hurriedly said, I want to get down to business. What's the matter? Lei Lei finally let Len Ning go. Look at this. A hint of playfulness flashed in Len Ning's eyes, and he took out a map from the space ring. This is this. Lei Lei took the map and opened it, looking at it and asking. This is what Han Qiudong gave me. The place marked on it is the base for making space jade, Len Ning said with a bit of pride. A flash of light flashed in Lei Lei's eyes, and then he returned the map to Len Ning. Have you reached a deal with Guo Qiudong? He then asked. He had never dealt with Guo Qiudong before. From Xiao Ning's description, this person is not a simple character. If this map is real, of course it is good, but what if there is a problem? Yes, Len Ning smiled and nodded, and then took out a space jade from the space ring. 5,000 space jades have also been obtained. Then the space jades were delivered to Lei Lei. Lei Lei was stunned and reached out to take the space jade. Sure enough, a large number of jade articles were found inside. I've done random checks, and they all have space. There should be no fakes, Len Ning said with a smile. It's a windfall, Lei Lei said and returned the space jade to Len Ning. A windfall indeed. As the construction of safe zones progresses, there are many places where space jade is needed. When the number of space jades is insufficient, they can only use space powers to replace them. Despite this, the number of space jades and space superpowers is still not enough. 5,000 space jades. If the military can increase such a large number of space jades, the construction progress of the safe zone will undoubtedly be accelerated a lot. But Lei Ting also knew in his heart that Len Ning's business was getting bigger and bigger, and the places where space jade was needed were not much less than those in the safe zone. Therefore, although he had some thoughts in his mind, he was not prepared to mention them to Len Ning. These interdimensional jades were obtained by the wife herself. How could a grown man talk to his wife? Okay, I know you want it. I'll give you 2,000, Len Ning looked at Lei Ting and said. Naturally, the more treasures like space jade, the better. Let alone 5,000, she would be able to use them even if she was given 50,000. As long as she is willing, the vegetable base will soon be able to produce a large amount of vegetable food for her. Store things in space jade, no matter how much space jade there is, it won't be enough. But the market is not that big right now, and it doesn't make much sense to let the vegetable base produce second-level crops in large quantities. It is better to give the space jade to the big brother who needs them more. After all, she had not seen him worrying about this matter these days. If she sees too much, she will feel distressed. Xiaoning, you don't have to dash, Lei Lei said immediately. Unexpectedly, Len Ning had already reached out and covered his mouth. You can just take it? What do we have to say about each other? He let go of his hand, leaned forward and placed a kiss on Lei Lei's lips. Lei Lei's heart trembled, and his big hands immediately hugged Len Ning's slim waist. Just as he was about to do something unruly, he was stopped by Len Ning's eyes. Let's get down to business, a certain woman smiled playfully. Thunder. Whether it is the construction of a safe zone or the Leng family's business expansion, the transportation equipment of space jade is indispensable, Len Ning said. What do you think? Lei Lei agreed with Len Ning's statement and asked directly. Didn't Guo Qiudong give me the address? I also have a helicopter, Len Ning said. You can find out if you take some time to go there. I'll go with you, Lei Lei said immediately. Len Ning was stunned. There are so many things in the military department, how can you handle it? She actually wanted him to accompany her on this trip. The wood-type superpower who is reborn in the apocalypse. Author, Kiji Now. Chapter 641. After all, the journey was long, and she was a little worried that Guo Qiudong was cheating. But since he brought them back to the Thunder base, they haven't been free for a long time in a real sense. Give me another week, Lei Lei breathed a sigh of relief. Len Ning turned around and looked at Lei Lei. There was a smile in Lei Lei's eyes. The reform of the military department is basically completed, and the detailed plan of the safe zone has also been released. Many things in the future do not need to go through me. In other words, he will finally have time to accompany him. Wife. Len Ning's eyes burst with joy. Just leave these things in the base to them. You are suitable to work outside with me, Len Ning said cheerfully. It would be a waste to just stay in the base with such a strong supernatural power. Yes. I will accompany you wherever you want to go from now on. Lei Lei hugged the person in his arms tightly with satisfaction. Haha. Len Ning felt very sweet. The two of them sat there until Len Ning's stomach growled, then they packed up and went out to have lunch together. Nowadays, Lishan's business is developed. There are many places to eat on the street, and there are also many restaurants that are doing very well. Len Ning saw a restaurant that his subordinates had mentioned, and immediately decided to take Lei Ting to try it out. Lei Lei naturally agreed, and the two of them took some time out of their busy schedule to have a meal at the restaurant. After the meal, Lei Lei took Len Ning for a walk around the back mountain. March has just passed in Yangchun, and the sun has come out today, making people a little intoxicated. I don't want to go back to the fifth branch. Len Ning stretched out in the spring breeze. Including her previous life, she couldn't remember how long it had been since she had enjoyed such a spring scene. This season is suitable for spring outings and outings. Then I won't go back, Lei Lei chuckled. We can't go back, Len Ning sighed, put away his arms, turned around and looked at Lei Lei, then walked backwards and continued walking forward. The Yangdao base is going to change its sales point to a component company and open a small vegetable base. I have to take the big idea. She used to think that her eldest brother was looking for trouble for herself, which was why he was so busy before. Now I know that when a company is in the development stage, there are too many things to worry about. I really can't get away, I can't let go. But don't worry, I will definitely arrange the big things within a week, and leave the other small things to them. Leng's hired some senior executives from elsewhere, and they will be able to take up their posts within a few days. There are also managers who performed well before and performed well after being promoted, such as manager CAO. These people deserve better opportunities from the Leng family. In addition, thanks to the fact that the first batch of pilots with driving skills have been brought out there, these people will be arranged to fly immediately, and the problem of lack of pilots will be solved soon. As long as people can support her, it will save her trouble and worry. Don't worry, Lei Lei said with a smile. Why aren't you in a hurry? The apocalypse is about to be a year away. It won't take long for communications to be restored. Len Ning was suddenly startled. By the way, please remember to arrange for the military department to arrange for people to check some of the base stations before the end of the world to ensure that they are operating normally. In this way, we will know as soon as communications are restored. Okay, Lei Lei nodded with a smile. I will seize the time to ask the Leng family to expand the market and export the products of our Thunder base. Only by making money can we develop our safe zone, Len Ning said with a smile. Our city will definitely become the first city in China to build a safety zone. It's not just that the safe zone is built, we still have to hunt and kill the zombies outside the safe zone. We will kill as many as we can until the zombies can no longer threaten us. Okay, do as you say. Come here. Lei Lei stretched out his hand towards Len Ning. I was worried that she might fall if she continued to walk backwards. Haha, Len Ning smiled, stretched out his hand, and slowed down to let Lei Lei catch up. When the two of them clasped their hands, Len Ning suddenly turned around, held Lei Lei with one hand and ran forward. Giggle, giggle, let's run back. As they walked, they laughed like silver bells in the spring breeze. This joy easily infected Lei Lei. He didn't stop Len Ning and allowed himself to experience the joy of running with her. Such childish behavior only occurred when he was very young. He felt a little silly before, but now he feels very happy. Arriving at a road fork, Len Ning finally stopped. I'll go back to Kongzhen from here. You go back to the military headquarters building from here. Seeing that the smile on Len Ning's face faded and became a bit disappointed, Thunder's big hand touched Len Ning's head. You go first then, he said. Give him some more time, and soon he will be able to spend time with her. Okay. Len Ning looked at Lei Lei reluctantly. Then he took out the car from the space ring. Then get on the bus. After the car drove a distance, Len Ning saw Lei still standing in the rearview mirror, looking in her direction. Len Ning suddenly felt a little depressed. Now people in the Thunder base are thinking about the future and looking forward to a better life in the future. But don't forget that the present moment is actually equally important. Even, maybe we should live in the present. The more he thought like this, the more Len Ning couldn't control his thoughts. When the car continued to move and Lei Ting's figure disappeared, Len Ning forced himself to withdraw from his previous thoughts. Don't think so much, didn't you say a week? In another week, the eldest brother will be able to spend a lot of time with her. Thinking of this, Len Ning felt a lot more at ease. He picked up his mood and headed towards the 5th branch office building. Returning to the 5th branch, Len Ning immediately called the Leng family's people for a meeting. The final investment plan for the Yangdao base was quickly formulated. Len Ning was very busy in the next 2 days. Because she made an appointment with Lei, and the two of them would have a 1-month honeymoon in a week. When the time comes, don't get involved in tedious matters, and just spend time with each other. As soon as the two announced the news, everyone below thought they were crazy. When persuasion proves fruitless, executives can only accept it. Then each began to take on more responsibilities, striving to make his boss happy in the next month. After announcing the news, both of them were in a happy mood and became much more efficient in their work. On the 3rd day, Len Ning once again received news that Commander Chen from the Southern Army base wanted to see her. She was very busy and refused because she really wasn't interested. But the words from the other party made her suddenly have the idea of meeting him again. So on the 5th day, Len Ning met with Commander Chen in his office at the Yangdao base sales point. Master Leng. Commander Chen came in with a confidant and said to Len Ning, "Oh. Sit down." Len Ning glanced at Commander Chen, then looked at the sofa seat not far away. "Thank you." Commander Chen was in no other mood this time and went to sit down next to the sofa.